What is up, everybody? It's your boy Andrew Esquire here with The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. What's up? I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are doing great out there. I got the fresh haircut, ready to go today. No, I'm actually pumped up. Seriously, I'm pumped up, guys, and glad to be coming out with another based stream today. We're having a lot of comic red pills with a guy who I actually met at Anime Matsuri, and we're going to talk about Anime Matsuri. We're going to talk about comics, but one thing is that when you're in this kind of journey and you're pushed out by the mainstream, you're kind of pushed out by whether it's mainstream of YouTube or mainstream of comics, and we're going to get into that. You end up making friends that you wouldn't expect, and it's kind of an unexpected alliance, right, between lawyers and comics people. But I find out as I go along, I am more and more in common with the folks that are fighting their own fight in this different realm. Like, while we're fighting a fight against the legal eagles, the bingers of the world, and all the things that they're bringing to the table, they've got their own fight with the folks that want to keep them down, keep them out, and want to push their insane agenda. So we're going to be talking about that today with my good friend, Joe Ball. How's it going, brother?
Hey. I judge this. I judge that Andrew is the tallest, most handsome legal YouTuber on the internet. That's what I judge. I think the chat probably agrees.
I'll allow those two things in conjunction, right?
Okay.
In conjunction, right? Because definitely, look, those handsome is very debatable. That's subjective. But tallest, I think I do win, right? I think that hands down, I do win that one. So nobody else is I'm the best looking in my height range. Absolutely, without a doubt. Nobody in my height range is close.
In a room of fours, he's a 10. Liberals. Suck on that, commies.
Oh, God. Awesome, man. So, and by the way, shout to everybody who's checking in now. I know that Rumble takes a second to get going, but shout to Rumble, locals. Appreciate y'all. And God damn it. Shout to Rumbles, locals, everybody else. Locals already starting out degenerate with gosh, this is the level of my locals, right? And if you guys aren't on my locals, but if you don't, this is how it starts out. Notice between Blair White and Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah, that should be followed by it's the same picture meme. But Blair's on our side, I guess. So we cut her a little.
So you allow it, you allow it. You're like, all right, at least you realize this is insane, So it's like, all right, we'll let this go. But
it's one of those things where you don't want to be like Debbie Downer, even if you don't approve. So you're like, I'm not going to endorse it, but if the rest of you guys want to, I'll try not to throw it in your face under the guise of jokes too badly, because we're kind of on the same team, but now you're making me wonder.
So Joe, listen, why don't you tell people, because this is your first time on my channel, and every time anybody is the first time on my channel, folks don't know you as well as I do, and we had a great conversation at Matsuri, and we talked through Twitter sense. But can you tell people a little bit about yourself, just who you are, before we get into the comics, where you came from, where you grew up, kind of what your background was, maybe what got you into comics in the first place?
Well, my name is John Joseph Ball. I typically go by John, but I use Joe Ball, thinking it would kind of give me a touch of privacy on Twitter years and years ago, realizing it doesn't matter because I've owned 3 different businesses. So my name's pretty easy. My information is pretty easy to find. I basically can't be doxxed at this point. You know what I mean? So it was a silly concept, but it stuck. It's what people are used to now. So I just roll with it. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. That is my hometown. It is the city that's the love of my life. I love Cincy through the good and the bad. And right now,
I like great. I'm a good fan. I'm a big fan of graders. I'm a big fan of graders. And what's that? It's the rib place. It's on a riverboat.
Montgomery Inn.
Yes, Montgomery Inn.
Yes.
Their food is fucking fantastic, I will say.
Oh, dude, Montgomery Inn's legendary. We have a restaurant here called Ruby's, ran by Jeff Ruby. He has a few other spots, but Ruby's itself is legendary. Everybody eats there. No matter how big they are, they come through. Everyone gets their photos at Ruby's. But it's accessible to normies too. if you don't mind the prices. So like a while back, we had everyone got together in Cincinnati for the Comic Expo, like me and Cecil and Yellow, like the whole gang of you know YouTube degenerates. We all got together and comic book people, and we went to Ruby's and had a blast, and it was a really good time. I'm trying to get people sold on going to some Bengals games with me. Like they're not as big on the NFL as I am. They're like, it's woke. I'm like, not really, dude. Like Bengals games is literally like tributes to the Marines, jets blasting over your head. It's red.
Yeah.
It's as red, white, and blue as it can get. You see people literally crying during the national anthem. Like it's a stadium full of Southern Ohio. The whole state's red. I'll just put it to you that way. Outside of Cleveland, the entire state's as red.
I think particularly the Southern Ohio. I mean, Southern Ohio definitely has, like, when I was in Southern Ohio, it's the north, but you kind of get a little bit of that. I don't almost want to say Southern feel, but in terms of like that patriotism feel.
It's a Southern place. Like, it's partially because it's so close to Kentucky and Tennessee, but it's also because it's so rural. You know, that's where all the farmland and stuff is. So you have to get like north of Columbus to get like city folk, you know, like, and we don't really get along with them. Like, honestly, you could take Cleveland and give it to Michigan and we would be fine with that. We don't care. And then you can give Michigan to Canada and we'll just call it the bridge to Canada because in Southern Ohio, we hate both places almost equally.
Well, so Michigan is number one though, right? Because I know that Michigan, like, they mess with you the most, right? But
it's a weird genetic thing at this point. it's strange. Like it's.
So, what's number two?
Probably Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't like Cleveland. It's one of those deals where it's in the same state, but you could cut off Ohio around a little below Toledo, maybe Akron, and we wouldn't mind. Like it's two different worlds. It's not the same place. One half is southern, and we drive tractors everywhere, and we don't appreciate no city folk. And then the other half is from somewhere around Cuyahoga County, and we don't like any of them either because they're obnoxious and gross and dirty. I'm just kidding. If you're from Cuyahoga County in the chat, by the way, I lived up there for a couple years myself, but it's just the general attitude, you know.
Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about?
we try to, like, I think we're somewhat civil, but you'll find Ohio people far more attached to everything below Ohio than above. Like we love Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia and Virginias and Carolinas. We love all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and they end up down there, right? They end up down there, whether it's vacationing or whether it's relocating. I mean, when I was working in the retirement communities, I did all this special district work, which is how I know so much about this Disney bullshit. But when I was working with these special districts that were essentially covering just retirement communities, half the people, it's Pennsylvania, Ohio, like that. You put those two together, a little bit of Michigan, but they sometimes are weird and end up other places. But that was a huge contingent of the folks that were down there in Central Florida, moving to Polk County, Lake County over there. To get away from the cold finally and say, you know what, we're done.
That's a lot of it, man. Like I love Ohio and I'm trying to stick it out because I've lived everywhere. Like I grew up moving every 6 months to a year. So I mean, I went through like 28 schools before I graduated high school. And a lot of people think it's because my dad was in the military. That was after his military time. That was just because he took on stupid jobs that let him live a military life. Just jumping and bouncing to every which place. But I want to stay here so bad because I love Cincinnati so much. Like every time I'm in downtown Cincy, I'm happier than I've ever been. And I don't even like the city. It's just I love that place because of my childhood. And I consider Florida and Arizona more and more all the time. I'm like, God damn, I'm not even that old. I can tell when it's gonna rain because my elbows and knees hurt. Like that's how old I sound. I'm like, oh shit, there's rain coming. My elbow's feeling a little fucked up today.
The one thing, I mean, I will say when I was up in Cincinnati, it was a beautiful experience. I was there during a good season. It was like spring, so it was fine, right? But I will say, when it gets rainy, like the one thing that the Midwest has that I just, it's hard for me as a Floridian is that it's gray all day.
There is a lot of that.
If it's going to rain or if it's like that kind of lingering gray all day versus it's particularly in South Florida, it rains really hard and then it's sunny. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it's raining, but it's going to be done in an hour max. And then you've got sunshine and you can go back to the beach.
Yeah. It rains here, and then you think it's 5 a.m. for 2 days straight because there's never any sunlight whatsoever. It's just always kind of like either the evening or the early morning, like in your brain, because it does mess with a person, not having normal, distinctive 24-hour segments when you're living in 8 p.m. at night or 5 a.m. in the morning for like a few days straight. It does mess with people a little bit. So
You said you did, like, as an adult, right? So as like as a grown man, did you
yeah,
move away and live other places other than Cincinnati, or did you just 100% kind of stick that out?
for a short time. I came back to Cincy when I was 18, when I could basically go be on my own legally, and met my wife and all that stuff and started a family here. But me and my wife, when we were younger, we spent a short we went up to Cleveland for about 2 years. We lived up there, and it was okay. It wasn't my thing. Like, I very much felt like a person had a place. Like, but I'd moved a bunch of times, so it's not like it's second nature to me to get thrown in
Mhm.
somewhere where I don't know anybody and speak to them like I've known them forever. Because it's just like it's like getting over stage fright at a super young age. But I didn't necessarily like it. I tell you, I feel most comfortable when I see the same newscasters that were on the affiliate news when I was like 5, like still on Cincinnati news talking about Cincy,
And that, I think that
stuff
happens in
like
those,
that.
like, that's like, since he's in that thing. I mean, Cincinnati used to be, I think, was the second or third largest city in the world. That was in like the 1800s. But like,
Yeah,
but now, it's one of those. It's in, I want to call it like a mid-tier American city, right?
hmm
Like, it's in that, it's not a small town, it's not a small city. It's a name brand city, it, but it's not got the size on it that a large metropolis has, right? It doesn't have the size of Chicago, New York, LA. It's
yeah.
got more of a homey feel, I think.
The 70s and 80s, it was a power city by default of the sports and the television and the attention it got. Um, and that made it up until the 90s. Like, I tell people all the time, like, in the early 90s, it was still a party in Cincinnati. Like,
Mhm.
everywhere you went, there was cheesy music playing and Bud Light flowing. It's just a
Well,
constant party. You know,
nowadays, what are they doing with the Bud Light? I mean,
yeah, probably throwing it in the Ohio River to contaminate it further. Let's contaminate the Ohio River one more time. Why not? Let's just
oh
dump all
man.
the fucking Bud Light in there. But it's very German, so
Mhm.
we have a large German community, and it's just a lot of fun in Cincy. Like, it's on the up and up ever since the Bengals got their shit together and have been absolutely on fire the last few years. That has helped a lot. You see hotels and giant buildings that were amazing in like 1992 that have just kind of been neglected and went into auction and getting bought up, and people rebuilding. Like, there's rebuilding everywhere
See,
downtown
that's the
now.
thing, and that's the one thing that I see. It's like that'll change a city in the dynamic of a city.
Mhm.
Is that stuff getting bought up and rebuilt and built into something that's kind of new and has full of life versus bought up and used as a bum hanger.
Yeah.
Essentially, which is, by the way, what happened to me. And I'll shit on Michigan since that's like y'all's bread and butter. But like when I was in Detroit, I mean, I was depressed. I literally was feeling suicidal. This is before I left to Korea, but so about 2.5 years ago, I was in Detroit, and I was just like, how do people live here and not jump off a bridge? No offense, guys, do not do that. But what I'm saying is like, I felt like it was that sort of drain of the Midwest, that sort of rust belt. Like, I felt the
Mhm.
rust. I felt the rust in the rust belt. I didn't feel that in Cincinnati. I didn't feel like it was like completely dead. Like there was like no hope for the future, like give up, the time is gone. But I,
Yeah.
I really felt the decay when I was in Michigan.
Well, I think the difference is that, like, in Cincy, yes, despite getting like Democrat mayors and stuff like that a lot, they know they have to play ball with Republicans being literally in every other spot you can imagine in government from the bottom up. So they kind of play ball, and the city's never dwindled to an extreme point. Like, I'd say in the early 2000s, we had a rough spot between like the over the Rhine area and just police and ghetto folks just clashing badly, and it wasn't 100% like one sided. It was very wishy washy, and they finally got things together and found a way to get get people the help they needed, get the cops the help they needed, and turn downtown back into a tourist zone. So it's been good now. Like, yeah, I still carry my gun everywhere, but I don't really feel like it's necessary. Like I'm
Yeah.
never nervous or worried. Downtown's clean. It's nice. You see people just fixing and repairing and cleaning and doing all the things you'd expect of a city where you're paying a lot of tax money in.
Well, I forget what's the carry status for Ohio. I haven't checked. Do you guys have constitutional carry yet?
Yeah, past
Okay.
it went through last year, and then it took 3 months, I think, for it to after the governor's signature for it to actually go into effect. So there was still like a little gap, but yeah, we have it now. You're not obligated to even tell the police you have a gun.
That
I
is
would,
glorious. That
but you're not
yeah,
obligated to.
I would for safety purposes, but
Hmm.
because I'm worried about like my rights and my legal rights because the itchy trigger finger cop and you're a white and like as a white dude, right?
If it's
the
a routine stop, just tell them. It's
right,
not a big deal. If you're being attacked and you don't have a choice, that's whatever. I'm not getting into
right,
that. But if it's routine stops, just say, "Hey, I've got this. Do you want me to put it up here, or would you like to get it yourself and put it on the dash? Like, take your
right.
pick. I don't care." Just so they feel a little more comfy, because there's no reason in like I'm not even like the biggest fan of cops, but I also know not to
I
judge
am
every
not a
one of them
fan.
at face value. So
I'm not a fan at
yeah,
all. But I mean, and I think that one of the big things we saw, the unfortunate things we saw, was this filtering process during COVID, right? And we can now talk about this. God, I'm glad we can talk about this on
yeah.
YouTube now. Is that we saw this filtering where a lot of the good cops left because they're
Hmm.
like, I'm not doing this shit. I'm not enforcing these shitty laws, and they're like, peace, I'm out. And look, some of them moved to other states, right? So some of the ones in the north, for example, didn't like they moved down to Florida, right? They moved to Texas, they moved to states that weren't going to make them enforce these laws. But
Yeah.
a lot of these people that were, hauling grandma out of a Burger King for not having her papers, I mean, they stayed in power and even they got promotions. So
It's dude, it's rough because like that was the litmus test. And as a let's say like as a collective, because I'm not gonna always speak in exceptions because I think
right,
that's
right.
silly.
Right.
But as a
Obviously, there are
collective,
exceptions to everything, right?
yeah.
There's like the
Yes,
one dude, there's like the one good guy in the New York Police Department, right? Who's like a
exactly.
swell dude, right? And
Yeah.
he's just a great guy, He's
Yeah.
the perfect guy. Yeah, and he's conservative too. And he's based, he's the one guy in the entire New York Police Department. Yes, that's not how you set the rule.
And he arrests the same motherfucker every 2 days
Yeah,
because they give him a fine and throw him right back on the street to keep revenue rolling in. Because if you can keep getting
exactly.
fine money to stay out of jail, they'll keep getting that forever and ever and ever, and the judges are fine with it, and the cops end up killing themselves if they're good ones because their job has turned them insane.
Yes.
And it's sad because I've worked
It-
for cops, like guys that went on to do other business ventures in
I
Chicago and other places, and
I
they
know a
the
lot of
stories are
cops,
terrible.
ex-cops. I
Hmm.
dated a cop at one point, female cop. Jesus Christ, that was insane.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
but no, that was insane. But the shit they see, it fucks with their head. I'll just put it this
Yeah.
way: the shit they see and what I have to deal with fucks with their head.
Mhm.
And you got to understand that. Like if you're in any job or any role, right? If you're a doctor in the ER or nurse in the ER, even right, you're gonna see a lot of shit, and that's gonna affect you, right? In the way you
Mhm.
respond to stuff emotionally, psychologically. That's definitely gonna hit you.
Well, they can
Uh,
only push it away for so long. I think that's the catch. If these were like one-off events or something where you could compartmentalize it temporarily or whatever, it would be different because everyone in life's had some experience that just screwed with their head for a little while. But when it's all the time, day in, day out, yeah, no wonder we're lucky they're not crazy. I guess I should say, you
yeah,
know,
no,
in a lot of
it's
regards.
it's true. And then nowadays, when we have the legal cases like the Kim Potter case and other cases where like the good, I mean, that was a mistake in that case, but it's getting more. It's getting more dicey for the good cops to actually take action. In fact, the safest thing for a police officer to do now is do nothing and just keep driving.
Yeah.
Right? Like if there's an
Oh,
actual altercation and issue, to keep driving. Now, if it's something where it's like, hey, we've got this guy and we got him on a red flag law, send everybody there. Or even we've got this guy who got called in and this is a swatting, right? Of course, they don't they don't identify it as a swatting, even though it'll be pretty obvious usually. You know, it's some robotic voice or whatever that says, I've got a gun and I'm gonna do this and this bad thing to my family, right? So they'll over respond. That's fine. They'll go there for that. But when they see that the issue in the neighborhood, right, the bad neighborhood, because every city has one, you know, and I'm sure Cincinnati's no exception. I never went to that part of town, but I'm sure there's that part of town.
It exists. Yeah.
They just drive through, you know, they see it and they're like, this is not worth my life. This is not worth my career. I'm just going to keep fucking driving.
They're trying to get their pensions. Like you said, it's not worth their career. If they know if they can just make it so long without losing their minds, they will be comfortable for the rest of their life. Their kids probably will be too. They can have an in-ground pool. They can, you know, there's all these like nice comforts you can have that cost an insane amount of money once you look into them. And to some degree, I don't blame them to some degree. But at the same time, we both know like those aren't the people you necessarily want as cops. But it's not like it's choice pickings. Nobody wants the fucking job. So you know who does want it? People that like power for one reason or another, whether good or bad, because I don't think it's always bad.
Also too, they'll ramp up the incentives, right? And it's like, okay, well, the people that want the incentives more than want to do the job are the ones that are going to be, you know, enticed by it, or the potential for abuse and misuse. And guys, this, by the way, and thank you, Hunch. Appreciate you for giving me that shout out. You're my boy. Said YouTube didn't get a YouTube membership, YouTube notification for the stream. They're fucking with you again. They're always fucking with me. It's funny. I finally think I'm doing decent. Like some of my videos have really done well. And then they nuke you, right? Then somebody there, like somebody starts watching them and they're like, oh, fuck this guy. Or they just, you know, they remember that tag of like disincentivizing the algorithm.
Yeah.
So if you guys could do me a favor, like the video, right? That really will help this out. Also, if you want, you can reshare my Twitter status. So maybe that'll help get the word out here. I just put out the Twitter status here. It's live now with Joe Ball. So go ahead and just retweet that, like that. And that should get it moving a little bit and help counteract the weirdness of YouTube. As always, these guys are messing with us. And of course, if you guys stay tuned on my locals, that'll always be there. And obviously, shout out to the DGens on Rumble. Who those guys get the notifications. Shout out to Puppy Jack, just be George 1001 and haircuts over there on Rumble. I see y'all. So yeah, it's a weird situation where we got to fight the algo.
People can hate on TikTok all they want, but if YouTube had TikTok's algorithm, it would be such a blessing.
Well, if it had so there's kind of arcs for platforms, right? And there's like the arc of organic growth, and that's like in the beginning. And TikTok still, I think it's cresting, it's going to go over, but it's still in that organic growth phase, right?
Yeah.
And then you move to the pay to play, which is where YouTube is. And then like the very mature pay to play is like Facebook, which is, you know, just covered in ads, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Death, which is MySpace. But they're still in the organic growth. The problem with TikTok is they're insanely woke. If you say anything slightly controversial to the right, if you say something to the right of AOC, you're going to get banned off of TikTok. That is,
I mean,
guaranteed.
I'll be honest. I feel like I see a ton of that kind of stuff. But now that you say that, I can't necessarily vouch for if it's different people.
That's the thing. So what
guys
they do
getting deleted, new people coming in, you know.
That's what they do, because the stuff will go viral. Because, for example, the take clips, right? And like it or hate it, I'm just going to use very controversial content, right? And by the way, I don't believe any content should be banned, no matter how offensive it is or how much you don't like somebody, right? But someone would post that sort of stuff, right? Or anybody talking about anything right wing, let's say, even Tucker Carlson clips or something like that, reacting to Tucker. They'll get banned for that, but then they'll open a new account.
That's true. I haven't seen a take clip in a while. I used to see them constantly. They
killed the tag. They killed the tag. So anybody who tags it, and as soon as the film comes up, and the algorithm's good enough to catch the voice, your video's yeeted and your channel's yeeted. So they got good at filtering that because it's one specific type of content. So the people that are creating right content on TikTok, they don't get big. You're never going to see them with 5 million subs or, you know, like, unless they're establishment. Maybe if they're establishment, maybe if they have it in. But then again, you're getting the milquetoast stuff you can get from elsewhere.
Or if they have titties. then you're you'll
Well, if it's
skyrocket
the yeah,
overnight.
okay. If it's the trad wife, have you seen the trad wife?
I've
Um,
seen a mishmash of trad wife stuff. Most of what I see on TikTok, 'cause I swear they do it, whether you look for it or not, is just like constant e-girls like all doing like a little dance to the same song.
yeah.
That's
Oh
fine.
yeah, yeah.
I get girls just want to
It's
have fun,
constant
but
e-girls,
it's
but this is the
all the
girl.
time.
I actually put up a poll in my members only, and she won by a large margin. This is Esty Williams. She's a TikTok trad wife. Now, of course, my whole thing is she's really the chameleon, right? She just discovered that trad wife is trending now. And it's something she got into and was like, oh, it's trending. I can make money on this by just being a trad wife, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and the girl's married already, was a pretty much a liberal before that or whatever else. But just doing the trad wife memes of, cooking and I'm doing laundry and stuff like that.
she's
Um,
cosplaying as trad wife.
she's like I mean, you've been to conventions, right? I mean, I was
Yeah,
I was in one of the conventions I was at was actually Colossal. Was it Colossal Con at the water park up there in Sandusky? I was at that one, and I don't even fucking remember why I was at. I think one of my friends was like selling shit there, but anyways, these mid-tier girls, I talk about the mid-tier girls, the girls that can never be Playboy playmates, that can never even be Instagram models, that are just modeling, right? Like they
yeah,
couldn't throw on a bikini and get this level, but they throw on a cosplay, a Slave Leia, an Asuka, a Rey, anything like that.
yeah.
Um, My Hero Academia, whatever it is, they get a legion of fucking simps. And they saw that opportunity. And look, I don't blame women for doing that. I think they're clever. They're looking at demand and they're like, I'm going to provide the titty supply.
Well, it's
Um,
weird because it's like a two-way street, like in terms of like negative and positive. And they're the same thing though. That's what's so weird. The point is it makes all these like mid-tier fours think they're tens,
yes.
which is bad because now they're going to think like they're tens, and it's going to be a reality check when something doesn't go the way they think it will. But at the same time, it gives a bunch of fours the confidence of a 10, and I'm behind that. So it's weird because it's like it's giving them something they shouldn't have, but that they should have all at the same time. So like I figure they balance each other out, like they equal each other out somehow. But good for all the broads that thought they could never find a guy and realized if they just got on TikTok for 5 minutes, they'd have a legion of a million fucking simps ready to send them 10K to do absolutely nothing. Like I wish I had that ability. I thought my titties just aren't big enough yet. Someday I'll grow up, but right,
Someday you'll grow to full size simp. It's size
yeah.
S.
I just got to
Uh,
eat more. That's all there is to it.
Well, or go to the AI, right? Once you get into the AI,
True.
you can just AI yourself. I've seen some things, some horrible, horrible things. You leave it too long in in the locals chat, and they show you AI edits of yourself that you never thought you would see. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
some pretty rough AIs of some people I know, and I'm like, thank God I'm not that popular. Some of this stuff is depressing.
No. But you got pretty good stuff like Icky Breaky Joe Ball. This is actually pretty
Oh
good.
Lord,
This is
I'll
actually
take
pretty
that. That's
good.
actually pretty sweet. I like it. I like that a lot because that's just like
Yeah.
that's Southern Ohio, like in a nutshell, right there. Like mullets,
Yep.
acid wash jean jackets, shit like that. I was at a Bengals game last year. I don't remember which game, but it was towards the end of the season, and there was this whole group of family, and like there's certain seats you can't get unless you've got the money to get them. Like there's people I see there where I'm like, dang, that dude must be loaded. He has got
Yeah.
season
There's no
tickets for
way.
that
Yeah. There's
spot.
there's
Yeah.
the upper echelon. Yes.
Yeah, and they will literally have a whole herd of like white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids, all with the craziest mullets you've ever seen. Even some of the girls are borderline mulleted, and I'm like, you can tell their parents were raised between like 87 and 92 in Cincinnati because their kids look just like every kid looked.
Right.
Even the steps on the side of their
It's
hair,
not a.
they got
It's
the
not
steps
a.
shaved in.
It's not an income thing because to have number one those seats and that also amount of kids. Because frankly, if you have like a herd of kids, that's in
Yeah,
America. You have to be a millionaire. I actually just did the math for one of my videos on my Asia channel, but in the US now, the cost of raising one kid over K through 17, right, is about 310 grand now, right? So that's the cost from K to 17 going back. So if the kid is 17 today, right, going back 17 years, how much you spent over the years. And like, that's fucking, I was thinking about that. I'm like, what would I do with that money? Like, I have a lot of things I could do with that money. You know, 2 kids, you know, you're talking over $500,000. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Here's the weird thing about once you have kids is
Right.
something in most people makes them want to spend money on your kids.
I get it.
You
I
find
get that.
joy in, so like I think that plays into it too, where it's like, yeah, I could buy them cheap diapers, but it's not good for them. I'm gonna
Right.
get them decent diapers so that their body stays in check, and that they're, you know, you just spend money on things you never even thought about in the past, and you don't
Right.
even mind doing it. It's not even like a thought in a person's head. Like I still have to struggle with when my daughter tells me she wants to look for some toy of something she saw on YouTube. And I'm like, yeah, let's get on Amazon and start looking at them. Inevitably, I'm going to buy her stuff, and she doesn't need any more stuff. There's too much stuff. I'm putting it in Rubbermaid tubs and storing it in this basement I'm in because she's got so much goddamn stuff. But my self control's not good, and it's fun making them happy. And it's a hard urge to fight. Like I think any adult knows, like until kids burn you a few times on their unappreciation, it's so hard not to just like blow money on the dumbest things they ask for, even if it's unreasonable and stupid. It's like, yeah, sure, Daddy will see what he can do. 24 hours later, they have some ridiculous item on the doorstep that you should have never blown $500 or $600 on.
Well,
But in the moment,
I
you're
will
like, they'll
say,
love
look,
it.
we give people, yeah, I know. I mean, it's hard not to simp for your kids, right? That's the one thing. It's hard not to do it. Dungus Fun says, long live mullet haircut, Joe Dirt for the win. And then Hunch says, you put her up, the TikTok trad wife, you put her up against 3 conservathoughts who've seen more meat than a sausage factory. Of course she won. Well, it was like, what would you rather want? My question is like, what would you rather, a chameleon or somebody who is on their face how they are, right? Because obviously she's not a real trad wife, right? She's not, it doesn't have traditional values, right? The things you think, you're projecting that onto these women. I mean, and I think someone local said, you know, look, it's a desperate girl grift. And I think that's actually true, particularly nowadays. It's like, oh, all I have to do is this, put on the sun hat, the sundress, and look like I have this apple pie I baked, even though I bought it from the store, right? You know, and I'm going to get these, you know, church going, red voting guys to come over and wife me up, you know, when they're looking for their good girl, right? They're going to be real surprised after a couple of years, or, you know, even a couple months when the mask drops. But, you know, that's enough to get them in the door and kind of hook them.
Dude,
right?
it's like, it's sad, but you get it at the same time.
Oh, I get
You
it.
know what I
I
mean?
do get it.
It's like, I get that there's a lot of guys out there where this is like the only way they can handle feminine attention. You know what I mean? Like you can tell them, hey, dude, just bare minimum, go out to a bar, start meeting some people. There's got to be some way to meet real humans, but they aren't cut
Well,
out.
how did you
for real
meet your wife,
humans.
Joe? How did you meet? And obviously you're a little older, right? So like
Yeah,
I think you're younger than me.
I'm 40.
Yes, you're 40. So I mean, I'm 36. So you're a little bit above me. I think you technically edge in. Are you edged into millennial? Or are you still?
I ride right on that line. I
You're
consider
right on
myself
the line.
Gen X, but some people would say millennial. I don't think millennial is like really a thing. I know how it technically is, but I don't think it was really a thing unless you were born in like the mid 90s. So it doesn't make sense prior.
I just feel like it didn't, like the descriptors they use, like grew up with technology. It's like, that's like half true. Like when I was older,
Yeah.
but when I was younger, I really didn't. I was really pretty analog in terms of what I had. Yeah, we had video games, but so did the 60s and 70s. Like it was no different. It was a TV in a gaming system, right?
The internet was in baby steps till 2000.
I was
You know
using
what I mean?
DOS. Like
Yeah.
and like floppy disks like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't really compute. Like the amount of work I had to do to get information off of those bricks that they called computers was much harder than we deal with nowadays. And the smartphone, that's the big thing. No growing up with a smartphone, which you get a little bit older, and those kids did grow up with smartphones.
Well, even that kind of stuff, that level of being able to get online on your phone, how it is now, that didn't even exist till like 2009, 2007. Like that was the realm when that became accessible. Prior to that, like internet on a flip phone was a nightmare. It was so retarded.
I mean,
And
it took forever and it was wonky and the website
yeah,
sucked. Like it's just like on your Razor, like
yeah.
come
You
on,
checked
that's
it because
not.
you had no choice in the moment, but it wasn't your preferred way of dealing with the internet. It didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as accessible and could handle what it does now. It's two different worlds even now
Okay.
to then. But
I've been knighted an honorary Gen X, so I take it. I'm like, okay, I'm good to go here. I'm good to go.
yeah, I would say so. Like anyone that at least like played Super Nintendo or Sega at some point in their life in the 90s, I'll give you
That
Gen
that
X
was my
credit.
those were my two systems. It was really Sega, Super Nintendo, and
Mhm.
Genesis. Like I grew up on a Sega Genesis. Like that was it. I had that for the longest time. It's all my parents had money for,
Yeah.
until I saved up and I got a PlayStation 1 myself with money I saved from doing random work and stuff, mowing the lawn.
Well, people too, like you'll notice this. There's always this thing where you hear like video games is why this entertainment couldn't thrive, or video games is why that couldn't, why kids don't play outside. It's like, yeah, well, like you said, there's been video games since the 70s. Kids will still play outside even if they have a PlayStation
Yeah.
5. Kids will still do these things. It's just like it's something. It's like it's a cultural issue, as we all know. It's not the games doing it. We've had the games for 30 plus years now. It's clearly something else,
No,
so
I honestly preferred to play with my friends and to hang out with my friends than to play video games. Like if I had the opportunity and
mhm.
the two equal opportunity, it was kind of a downtime thing. Like, okay, it's late at night on a weekend or something like that, or my friends are busy and I just can just play video games today, right? Nobody wants to do anything, so we're gonna play video games. It wasn't that I didn't want to go out, and even then, even at home, I went outside, right?
Yeah.
And my
Yeah, same
parents were
here.
kind of the free, you kind of do what you want, just don't get arrested or get, killed.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I mean, I had brothers, so, there was no huge risk other than the fact that, I might light something on fire, which I did. And, the firefighters luckily handled all situations, but,
Dude, we're
it was,
honestly, we're lucky we didn't all get snatched. Like anyone born before 1996 is lucky
but I
they
think,
didn't
but
get
here's the thing,
snatched.
Joe, is that like now I think we worry too much about that. Like, I think because of that, everybody is worried about getting snatched, their kids getting snatched, and all these other bad things happen. Which by the way, the incidence of that may have gone up, right? But I just feel like just the helicoptering, it's not
Yeah.
good, right? The
Well,
over parenting, it's not good either.
it's tough because like I think if like I'll give you an example. Like I only
Sure,
trust my kids to stay the night with my in-laws and my parents. And that's basically as far as it goes.
that
And
makes
that's
sense.
because they're the only people I know well enough to know my kids can stay the night, not come back traumatized or fucked up.
Right,
Um,
right. And
and
that and
when
that
you
and
look,
by the way, that makes total sense, particularly
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah.
Particularly nowadays with all the crimes with children involved.
And there's shit too where like you can look up the crime stats and the numbers on like particular dates. And when you start to put two and two together, that there's certain dates that are all fall in a 3 day span where the numbers of kidnappings go up like crazy. And you realize those also fall in, I know it's a little weird, but in dates with like weird occultic activity and their holidays, you start to put two and two together and you realize like, okay, there's certain days of the year I have to be a little more careful. And no parks, no this, no that. We just stay at home. There's you can even just like I've went to Walmart and had weirdos just start following us around. Just like simple things where I can't tell what's going on, but why the fuck is this like hillbilly looking motherfucker like on my tail peeking
Right.
around corners? It's not common, but it's happened enough times where I know that like basically every state's covered in red dots now if you look at the predator map, and you don't know if it's because they accidentally banged a 17-year-old or if it's because they're a creep. You don't have that definition, or at least the details on the crime enough to be that discerning to know what your worry level should be. So as a parent, we're in a really weird spot right now where it's like, yeah, I trust my neighbors, but like I don't trust my kids to be in the front yard unattended. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? I
I get
just
what you're
don't.
saying.
It'll
And
never
that's
happen.
and I grew up that way, right? I grew up front
Yeah.
yard unattended, down the
Same
street
here.
unattended. That's just how
Same
I
here.
grew
Yeah.
up. So it's like you want in what you're saying is correct, but you have to understand that does shape how people think and how are socialized and interact with the world, right? Like they will approach, I mean, for better, for worse, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
anybody, we're not putting that on you, right? As a parent, you're reacting to the situation, but the kids are going to grow up differently, just like COVID, right? With the masks, right? People not being able to read facial expressions, that's going to have an impact. It's going to actually socially retard. And I use that in the sense, the French sense of the word, slow down, guys. That it's gonna really impact their development because they're not able, they like missed out on that period. And for kids that are in a critical developmental stage, right, they're growing up, they're learning how to interact with the people, and they didn't get that because they couldn't see half their face, right, and they weren't in person, they weren't going to class. That's gonna really mess with things. And people already have trouble with social skills. I say, look, dealing with Zoomers, they are socially challenged. And it's only going to get worse for the upcoming generations. I think that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. It's just tough from a parent's perspective because like those little humans are the most to most people are the most important thing in your life, and the thought of something bad happening to them is something you can't, like, you have to accept the reality of I'll have to figure out ways to approach this, and they still get to have fun and see the world. But there's also like you have to be on guard on a weird level you never imagined until then. And you can't imagine it till you're in the midst of it because it's just not something your life reality faces. Like when people are like when they act like they're on that level of defensive of their dog or their cat or some fucking animal, it's the reason why people with kids kind of roll their eyes at that is because it's like, wait till you have kids. Wait, that dog will just be a fucking dog again. That cat will just be a cat again. And I know we all love our pets and we have certain ones we put on pedestals and shit like that. And I get that. But like there is a weird point you reach where the older you get and the more kids you have, the more you start to just see the animals as stupid fucking animals again. And when people cling to them too hard, it's like it can be weird, even though
It's
you
really
did
weird,
the
but
same thing.
it's cope. But the thing is, like nowadays, I think there's a lot more cope. I mean, particularly, I just say, look, you're very blessed to be married and have family, right? Like that's awesome, right? That seriously, I mean, that's great. I said for people right now, if you're married in America, you're winning, right? Like you're in a successful relationship, you're doing great. That is the exception. That is not the rule. You are now the exception, not the rule, right?
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. Let me get to some of these super chats here. Duncan's Fun says DDoS and floppies. Man, those were crazy times. Yeah, I like what someone said on locals. The floppy disk is the 3D save button, which is really great. IWD says when the most advanced at-home computers had 300 megabytes of RAM. Megabytes of RAM.
That used to be a crazy amount. I remember the first time I saw a file that was 1 megabyte that I was trying to save on something and was like, my floppy disk ain't even got this much space on it. I'm gonna find something. You know what I mean?
I had a 28.8 modem, a 28.8, not even 56K in the beginning. I had 28.8. I remember we got 56K. We're like, we doubled in speed. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was like wild. My images would load in a minute instead of 2 minutes, If you haven't dealt with loading an image and getting the tick of 1 bar at a time, you haven't lived. You haven't truly lived. Let's see. If you're old enough to remember Culture Beat on Fat Tuesday or that Aqua was the gayest club in Miami, you're not a millennial. I drowned so many 180 octanes at Fat Tuesdays. There's in Coconut Grove, IWD, the old one. They tore that down. You know what I'm talking about, though. You're a Miami person. Yeah, I know that. I'm definitely that's why I don't feel like a millennial. That's why I don't feel like a millennial. Nicholas Cruiser says, Joe, I am stupidly stoked for Death. The arc hooked me instantly. The theme insured my purchase. I can't freaking wait. So I want to combo that with another comment here on Rumble, which is right here. So for Peasy said, Mr. Ball probably has a ton more important stuff going on. But can you ask about the status of a color 16-page preview? Hail, death. So let me give a promo here, and I'm going to promo all of Joe's comics throughout this. They're in the description, right? So you guys can check out the description for all of Joe's comics as well as his Twitter. But obviously, a lot of folks are excited about Death. I think this is one of your premier projects here. The sci-fi fantasy graphic novel. And obviously also he has Swarm here, which is in the description, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that now, since people are just hyped up about it. So I don't want to keep the people waiting.
Yes. Well, I'll answer the one question first. I don't believe I said I would offer a 16-page color a preview, but I'll double check that and see if I did. I did say
Yeah.
I had a 12-page ash can that I was going to include with all books, and I am. I've already got those printed and ready to go. So those will go with all the final purchases, no matter what tier you purchased. It was just a goal we reached, and when we hit that benchmark, everyone gets one. And those are the anime Matsuri editions, so they're going to be even more odd and rare at some point. But I have if you look in the updates, there is a link to a digital file where you can go look at the 12-page ash can if you want to go ahead and
Awesome.
preview it. I don't remember which update. It was somewhere in the mix, probably back around December, maybe
Got
a
it.
little earlier, but it's there somewhere. It's a Google Drive link where you can check
here,
it
right
out.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this one right here in the updates, just check that out. Honestly, the artwork, I mean, to me, like, you had me at the artwork and you had me at the promo. Like, you were nice enough at Matsuri to hand out comics to scrubs. So I have it back here. Well, it's in the bottom, but you know, the artwork looks absolutely great. It gets inspiration. I think, like, to me, it looks like Berserk, and we're going to talk about Berserk in a little bit because I want to figure out what was going on with that. But like the art, the story, what was like your inspiration on the story end? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I've always grown up a fan of, like, obviously 80s toys, because that's when I grew up, and that was kind of like the glory phase for toys and cartoons and comics, kind of all becoming like a thing where one was a part of the other. So, you know, I grew up with the comic toy cartoon triad, and that was always a big influence for me. I got real into the Bible probably in my late 20s. Like, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, so I had some context of it, but like their take is different from like a normal Christian take, I guess you would say.
Yeah, the
So
normie take. It's like Mormon take, right? It's like a little bit different version there.
they tweak with some things. Like, they can give you like an okay foundation, but you've got to kind of unlearn some stuff and learn to not be defensive about things that were kind of shady or shifty in terms of how they present it. But anyways, besides the point. So by default, like, I had some knowledge of the Bible, and then that just went bananas in my late 20s. And I love Transformers, Berserk, the Bible, a whole mishmash of that kind of stuff. John Byrne for American comic books, Michael Turner, these high detail artists, and these, in John Byrne's case, one of the best writer artists that ever made a comic. He made Fantastic Four interesting.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
that's not easy to take one of the most generic looking super teams in comic book history and turn them into a #1 seller. It just goes to show you it's not the characters like look, it's about who's in charge
Well,
of
hold
writing
on.
them,
But Joe,
you know.
why didn't? I mean, they couldn't have made it. They didn't have enough diversity. Like, how are they popular with that? With so much whiteness on the Fantastic Four?
Well, there was a time in our country's history where you could relate or enjoy a character no matter who they were or what they look like. And you know, there was a even all my black buddies like Superman and Batman when I was a kid. It didn't change their perceptions.
Because they were relating with the character and the character
Yeah.
arc, not with the color of the character's skin,
Oh, they're
right?
enjoying the stories,
Yeah,
enjoying the fun. Like,
yeah,
to sell to a little boy, it doesn't matter what color or way that little boy was raised. Adventures will pretty much get them. A nice,
yeah.
fun adventure book is enough to sell them on a character. So,
Good
but
stories, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, look, I like Blade, you know, it's like, I don't give a shit like about, oh, Blade's black, okay, and like, it's a fucking cool story, you know. Like, it really doesn't matter if it's a good story. People are going to look into it and are going to say,
hmm
hey, I like this, right? This is something that I want to like learn more about. It's a world I want to get invested in. It's a character I want to know more about, right?
yeah,
Because I feel like this character is like a badass, right? I don't care about it. I like fucking Lando Calrissian, right? You know, it doesn't
yeah.
fucking
He's
mean
cool.
that. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's just a well-written character. It's like,
hmm
okay, you know, I'm gonna look into that I'm going to learn more about the universe. I'm going to learn more about these people because you've written a good story. So I think that's key to anything. And I always ask people, like, what's their, like, how do they write a good story? Like when you're coming up with a story for Death at Death or for your other comic Swarm, what do you do for the storyboard? Actually, I haven't asked this because I know different artists are different. Some of them don't do their own story, right?
Well, yeah, some people they take art gigs and they just work for
Right.
other people. I mean, I've done tons of that. That's obviously part of the deal.
Yeah.
It's rarely does someone come out the gate and do it all themselves. That's the exception. But for me personally, with writing, I knew like the elements I wanted. I knew what kind of story I wanted, and then I had to basically take those things and try to make them interesting, if
Right.
that makes sense. So it's like I know some guys maybe have like a big tale in their mind already. For me personally, I said I know what themes I want, what kind of look I want, what kind of style I'm trying to achieve, and how I want people to feel. And I'll figure that a story out based on those things. So,
I think
like,
that's the important one too. You were thinking how I want people to feel when they're reading this,
mhm.
right? Like the feeling you should get when you're seeing this, is one certain way. Like whether it's epic or grimdark or whatever else it
Yeah,
is, right? You want to
yeah,
feel that vibe through the artwork, through this, and then the story is an extension of the artwork in that case.
yeah, yeah. It is. You get inspired by varieties of things. You find ways to kind of make it your own, and hopefully you get to a good story in that process. I have a lot of mech, but it's organic mechs. One of the themes I wanted was when a mech takes a hit or gets like an arm tore off, I want him to bleed. I want
Yeah.
guts to spill. I want veins to spurt like in a 90s OVA. I
Yeah.
want it to be ridiculous. Even though the point of the story isn't the gore, I want those aspects there so when I need them and I want to use them,
Mhm.
I can have that impact on the person reading it, and they remember these aren't just robots. These are things that were once an organic being, and they're basically coated in an armor that looks robotic. It looks like
Right.
Transformers or mech or things like that, but inside they're still an organic creature. So, and I think Evangelion, we can thank them for that. They
Yes.
not only brought
Yes.
giant mech back to life, they gave you giant mech where when they took damage, it was brutal.
My
It was
first
heinous.
anime, well, other than Akira. Akira was my first one, but then and that's a movie, right? But like the
Yeah.
series that I watched was Evangelion with my friend, and I'm just like, what the fuck did I just watch after I watched that? But like it brought those kind of tropes out there, and it also brought that, hey, this ain't no kid stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because before that, I really wasn't into comics or manga. I actually didn't grow up with comics, really. And then after that, I really got more into reading, not just anime and manga, but also graphic novels. I got into Frank Miller,
Mhm.
like the Sin Cities, picked that up, the hard copy version, right? Not the movie. But it was, fantastic. It was like a different world for me. And I was like, oh, these things can have adult, like hardcore stories. It's not just something that is kind of lighthearted and, this kind of whimsical thing. I to be honest, I was never the biggest superhero guy, but when I saw like that the stories could be a little bit more adult, edgy, uh, you know, dark sort of stories, I'm like, okay, I like these better. I like these much
Well,
better because
it's
they're
tough
telling
because
more
like
real stories.
about the time you were born was when a lot of the American stuff went into a downturn and kind of stayed there and never got back
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And I think like the difference is like when I was little, I could still go to a gas station or a supermarket or wherever and literally have an option of at least 12 to 20 comic books to choose from. Walmart's and
Mhm.
Kmart's even had a whole wall of them at one point. So like you could find some stuff even if no shops were around. And for anime and manga, like you just had to be that guy that was in the know and knew the tape trading community and the
Yep.
people that went to Japan and got imports and helped circulate it here. But that was very small until I don't know. I'd say like the Dragon Ball Z boom helped it. The
Yeah,
late
Dragon Ball
'90s
Z definitely
boom of
helped it. Dragon
DBZ.
Ball Z definitely helped it. Yes.
Yeah, they kind
You
of put it on the map in a big way.
You start seeing
Before
in
that.
game shops and stuff,
Mhm.
like that, because I played Magic the Gathering back. I remember buying, God, Arabian Nights. I wish I had so much like the old school boxes, just boxes and boxes of Magic that if I kept it would be worth thousands today,
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands. But, of course I'm a kid. I didn't think I was just cracking packs, right? Um, But yeah, no, I remember that DBZ coming in, the statues, and I watched DBZ. I grew up. My AIM handle was Bardock, and then some numbers after that. So I mean, I was all into that. But from the movie, I watched that movie. But yeah, no, it was crazy back in the day. There was such good stuff, such great stuff. And the problem is, the reason why I like content creators and having content creators like yourself on, and I had Rini on last week, is because we need people to create good stuff. I think it's one thing to sit here and bitch and be like, Hollywood sucks, Marvel sucks. It's like, all right, but like, can we get some good stuff though? Like, can I point over here and say, these guys are making good stuff? These guys are creating culture, which, by the way, culture influences business, politics, and then the law, right? These things are all connected. So if we just keep giving up and losing on culture, it's just going to be a big L. If there's nothing else there to point to, be like, look at this good stuff. Look at what Joe's doing. Look at what Eric July is doing. Look at what these other people are doing, creating good stories that they're not woke. They don't have to be base. They don't have to be political. I mean, but they're just good fucking stories and good art, right? Focusing on those two things, good stories, good art, and you can do great. Even when by the way, even when you're being hated on. Because let's be very clear, and I want to make this clear. We talked about this before, but Joe's gotten this far, and if you haven't backed Joe, go ahead and back him. But he's gotten this far not being available in the Indiegogo search, right?
Yeah, they've completely. If you search up that won't give you any result whatsoever. You'll eventually just keep scrolling till you get to like campaigns that have already ended. It's nowhere. If you search Google, you won't find it. You'll find some other websites that have talked about it or things like that, but you won't find the actual Indiegogo link. I think Brave browser you can if you have Brave, but it's basically non-searchable at this point. Now it was for a long time, for the first like I don't know, maybe like 10 months it was up. But at this point, it's no longer findable that way. It's direct link only. And it's just rolling with the punches. That's how it is to some degree, and we're always in the process of trying to find like new and better ways to move ahead, because like deep down no one wants to be reliant on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. It's just like there's established ways to get your book out there and that people are used to seeing. So it's
when they see something weird, they're like, hey, what is this? Is this legitimate? Is this some sort of scam site? So that's the problem that the big platforms have, is it's like, yeah, we hate them, but it's like, look at the alternatives. Like even now with YouTube versus Rumble, and shout out to my Rumble chads out there. But to be honest, people still are not fully comfortable with Rumble, even though that's a very large established, their UI is getting way better and better. But, when they're like, it kind of looks weird, they're not used to it. If I tell normies about Rumble, they're not going to recognize that yet. It'll get there. It will get there, but it's just something that people don't recognize yet. And they're not broken into. So we have to work through these flawed means to try to, get people onto, whether it's other platforms, whether it's direct sales, whatever else, our own websites. We have to try to do that. But we're doing it, and people are being successful in spite of that, in spite of everything trying to fuck with them. They're being successful.
Well, I'll tell you this, is frustrating as some of these things can be in the modern age. We're blessed in a lot of ways, and I think that needs to be said because it doesn't get said enough. We hear a lot of like complaining and whining and boo-hoo me because of the liberals and this and that. Despite all of that, we're in a golden age for print. We're in a golden age for indie entertainment of all kind, whether it's music, movies, video games, comics. Everyone's got like a weird fair chance, even if stuff is kind of somewhat hard to, if it can be hard for people to have accessibility to it, because there are enough people out there with bigger platforms such as yourself that are kind enough to host people such as myself and give us the opportunity to get our product in front of a large swaths of people in short periods of time that we wouldn't have otherwise. If you go back to like the early 2000s, when me and my business partner were first working in comics, like print prices were insane. It cost so much money to get books printed, and you wouldn't even be making any money. You had to charge double what a bookstore or a comic shop would charge for the same type of product. and you can't go to conventions and just convince everyone that walks by to purchase on the level you need to actually grow. You
No,
just
I
get
mean,
stuck in a
you
rut where you
can't
lose
like
money for life, you know?
you're not a product hawker. You can't get in there and you can't get in there and like be like, come on down, get your comic here, get your best comic here, get your fresh comic. You know, it's not the thing that like works at a convention, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, maybe you could have like a I don't know what the maximum grift would be, like somebody cosplaying your character, I guess, right? Like that might be, or you know, having exclusive art or having other thing like that. Like that's the sort of thing you can do, and you can have your art out there. So when people see the art, they're like, "Oh, this is fucking badass. I want
Yeah.
to subscribe. I want to buy this." Right?
Yeah, and
That's what you can do.
yeah, you can, and it's one of those things where like I would say like the last 5, 6 years is the time to get in on it if you're going to try. Like if that's an aspiration you have where you really want to put the work and the money and the effort into it, because it is an incredible amount of work. I mean, I do all my pencil, ink, color, lettering. I do write all the stuff on my book particularly, but I would never do that for like any other situation short of being paid an incredible amount of money to do it all, because it is so many work hours absolutely consumed. Like I'm at a point where I can't even schedule in like sleep hours at this point. I just have to
That's how you
accept
know you're doing it
the hit
right.
I'm gonna take because of sleep. I go, just take the hit, dude. You've got to sleep at some
That's
point.
that's how you know you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Let me get some of these super chats, other questions
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Cars of Death, man. I don't know about this. Schuster, Scheichel, Kane, Finger, all Jews didn't make Superman, Batman Jewish. Laheim, past the Manischewitz. That's all I'll say. Joe, do you remember VeggieTales? Well, I'll just say I
Yeah.
remember VeggieTales when I was assistant youth and children's pastor and had to play that a million times. So I'm like traumatized by VeggieTales.
Well, VeggieTales is weird because sometimes you kind of get the point of it, like where the
Mhm.
story's going to go in terms of to like the Bible story or moral they're trying to
Right,
get to. And then
right,
there's other times where you're just like, man, this is really a leap. They couldn't have thought of a
right. Like
better way to get into this one.
how high were you when you were coming up with this like way to explain this story? You know,
Yeah.
it's like Jonah and the whale, but they're in like a spaceship, and I'm like, all right, well,
Mhm.
like there's a kind of direct way to get there. Like have a
Yeah.
whale,
Yeah.
right? You know, like let's just go direct to the whale. Let's not beam around this. No, I get it. Duncan Swan said, and two questions. Do you remember dial up, and do you remember in the sound it made? Yes. I had a 2880 and a
Yes.
56K. I remember the sound it made. I remember my parents telling me to get the hell off the internet so they can make a phone call. Like,
Yes.
so yeah.
That was
Oh, and
97 to 2002, pretty much.
yep. And then Pub H, PW H says, proud death backer. Can't wait, Joe. Thanks, Legal Mindset. And then Fopeezy said, tell Joe about the 16-page color preview. I'm the guy from Twitter. You responded to my tweet. And I also asked you to release the color version of the 12-page preview to tide the backers over. Well, there's probably a lot of people on Twitter, guys. Like, look, Joe,
Yeah, I have almost 5,000 subs. I'd have to have it a little more clear than that, but we'll see. I'm sure it's possible here. I'm not dismissing it like it'll never happen. It's just
right.
my memory probably is faltering me in the moment because I answer tons and tons of DMs, and uh I try to answer anything or even respond to everyone on Twitter that says something to me, even if it's not pleasant. So
Yeah.
I try to be accessible. I know it's not easy, and it's not like my following's anything compared to some people. Like if you're getting thousands of comments on a tweet, it's impossible to respond to every single person all the time. But I'm in a position where I'm not too big, but I'm not too little, so I'm right in that
Right.
weird little
Right.
spot
Right.
where
Right. You can't,
I
you,
I'm pretty accessible.
yeah, like if you send me a direct message and email, I typically get to it. But like for example, I try to get to my comment section and go through, but maybe there'll be a comment I miss, on a video
Yeah,
or I don't see, and it's like, hey, I'm sorry, guys. I try to get to it, and if I see it, I'll make sure I'll definitely respond.
of
But
course.
sometimes you
Yeah.
get so many, it's like, oh, there's 1,000 comments on this. It's like, well, shit.
Well, people are busy. I know it's hard
Yeah,
to realize sometimes because we're all busy and we forget
yeah,
about each other's levels of busy because we don't like normal people don't tell you every single thing they do in a day. But yeah, almost everybody I know to some degree is like they're crazy busy, so I don't even hit them up unless it's like borderline necessary or I feel like I'm in a position where it's like, "Ugh, I'm gonna have to bother this dude." now, and I don't even want to do that because I know they're already busy as fuck. So um, it's just how it is. But luckily, everyone takes the punches in stride pretty well, and we're all pretty good about getting back to each other, even if it's no matter who it is on the scale.
Well, that's why I like talking to you guys, because like in addition to like, okay, you guys aren't woke. I think like everybody tends to run their business in a way that I agree with, like with some principles, some integrity, and like they have. Look, maybe there's things don't work out as planned, right? With comics, there's always unexpected stuff that happens. Fulfillment can always gets fucked up, but many issues there. But that being said, they try to conduct themselves in an honest and upfront way, and I like that about everybody. I don't think I wouldn't work or talk with anybody that I know is deceptive or is fucked over their supporters and people that have
word spreads of that stuff pretty quick. You can't there's limits and there's levels, and it's different for different people depending on followings and how loyalty their fans are and stuff like that. But overall, like if you just don't deliver ever, other people will hear about it, especially if you're trying to sell a product and stuff like that. Like luckily I've already done a bunch of CG books for other people. So,
So let me talk about that though, because I don't want to get too far away from it. And I was going to ask earlier. So like your experience with Comicsgate, because everyone has a different experience. I've talked a little bit offline with Scott about it. I talked a little bit with Rini about post Comicsgate, like living in a post Comicsgate world. But you were kind of in it. So do you want to talk about like what that experience was like going through that and kind of how it forged you guys coming out of that experience?
Well, it was interesting because it was like I'd say like your starting point obviously was your boy Zach, or Diversity in Comics as he goes by now.
Right.
He basically said what everyone was thinking and did it in a way where people didn't have to feel like I'm the only person that's noticing this or realizing this. And I mean, I had touches of it earlier too at the time, like say like 2000 between 2011 and 16, I had two different comic book shops. And on the second one, around like 2014-ish, I started to notice like if I went on Twitter to try to like, because I wanted to stay in tune with things because I couldn't focus on everything. So I was like, I'll just follow all the companies and the creators on social media, and I'll at least have some finger on the pulse of like what's going on for things that I don't have time to focus on and to improve business and stuff. And I just saw like liberal comic creators just being absolutely nasty to normies. It wasn't other creators. It wasn't even all the horror stories you hear about now. It was just to normies over the most frivolous, like petty comments or nonsense where like the person wasn't even being disingenuous or rude or anything like that. Like lighthearted at times. And or like I remember Ron Mars. He was a longtime Top Cow writer. I loved Top Cow growing up. They were my favorite studio. I thought they were like to be anywhere was to be at Top Cow. That's when you knew you made it. And he would just be so nasty to normies online, and it blew my mind because I had connections from doing the cons and handing my artwork to people. So like the Top Cowboys knew who I was to some degree, and I just emailed the prez and be like, dude, I'm buying your books out of loyalty and keeping them on my shelves. Nobody's buying them. No one fucking wants them because your best work is kind of behind you guys.
And I think that's what a lot of people were writing off of was like just the folks that were continually buying, like they were like the no question full send, right? Like you're just buying because you like the person, right? But not because they're doing active marketing. They kind of given up on that entirely, it seems like.
Well, to go from like the company that was putting DC and Marvel always out of the top 10 to the company that couldn't even make it in the top 100. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a sad state of affairs. And it's like, bruv, I'm trying everything I can here to sell your books, and your creators are online just butt fucking me right now. Like, can we please? Like, is there some middle ground we can reach where your guys can stop being terrible to fans and I can encourage fans with a good heart to buy your products without basically lying through my teeth about the books and about the people that make them? Like, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do in this situation? And I got the same standard answer. Well, we subcontract them. They don't technically work for us. It's like, that's fine. Just ask them to tone it down. You've known these guys for 20 years in some cases. Say, dude, just tone it down a little. If they're your friend and your partner in business, they should have a little respect for a mild request to stop glorifying and being happy when someone gets shot as that being indicative of guns are bad. Like why are they happy about it? Why are they boasting? Like, yep,
Yeah.
another person shot. I'm so pumped about this. Maybe
Yeah.
the conservatards will get it now. It's
Yeah.
like, no, dude, you're happy about a terrible event. Just
Right.
stop being happy about it. It's weird. You people are fucking weird. I cannot stand you.
It's a weird mental illness that these
Yeah.
people will celebrate that. They're like, yes, another bullet point for our statistic, right?
So it was great when your boy Zach came along. He came along at the right time, the right
Mhm,
place, all that stuff, and he exploded because of it. And really, he set the whole thing off. And I would say originally it was a consumer movement. It was people
mhm.
saying, "We don't like the product. Give us better product." We screamed for years. Nobody listened. So then we stopped screaming and said, "Well, we'll make our own," because at least 10% of us want to do that anyways or actively do it already. And it went from a thing where it was about consumers to being more about consumers getting offered a new option. So it was still
Mhm.
consumer based, still is, but I would say like the personalities probably get a little more of the focus now. But they're the ones putting on the shows. They're the ones hooking
Well, yeah,
people
I mean,
in.
that's kind of the
They're
people
the
that
ones
get you
selling the
in.
product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you buy a personality, right? You're like, oh, I want to buy, like, you buy in a product because you're like, oh, I like Eric July. Oh, I like
Hmm.
Joe. Oh, I like this person. And so I want to support the product because I like them, right? And
Yeah.
it's always been the thing for sales, right? People buy in products, they buy the people, right? It's not, the product can be great, but if the guy who's pitching the product kind of is an asshole, they're like, well, fuck that guy. I'm not gonna go and like buy his product. So it is people, but the good thing is that it seems like, because you guys kind of got run out, right? You built this great network of people,
Hmm.
and network of fans that like your personalities, that like engage in your content, and that know you guys are good guys, so they're able to continually stay and buy in.
Well, it's weird because, like, some of us lost work. Like, I was just kind of getting my foot in the door when these
Hmm.
things kicked off in terms of like getting above just doing like indie work for every rando that, I sent them my artwork. Because I did indie work my whole life and graphic design and storyboards, whatever work I could get, obviously, along with holding down a full time job. But it got to a point now where you could just make this your job, and that's really
Hmm.
why CG is awesome because you can do this for work. You can get enough eyes on your stuff to where it's worthwhile and it's not just like a fruitless effort year after year after year. Like I said, I know there's exceptions, but most of the time in the indie world, it takes an incredible amount of years to circulate your work and get people to know your name if you're not working with DC or Marvel. And even if you are at this point, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. There's guys that have campaigns that have been dominant players for 15 years, and they have a campaign over on Zoop that's lucky if it rakes in $15,000. And you're like, Tim Seeley can't rake in 15 or $20,000. This is the creator of Hack Slash, got to write Superman, got to do all this, the shit
But
that
they
was
don't.
like
But they don't have platforms. They don't have a network. They don't have people, and they don't have credibility, right? Because they are not part of
not at
that,
this
right?
point. They've turned
They,
off too many people. They're the
yes,
outcasts now. They've turned off normies, and now they're relying
normies.
on backpats from their friends instead of sales to keep them a living that's
Right, but
comfortable.
industry blowjobs are only going to get you so far, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like when you're working for them, it's great. When they're delivering you a salary and a paycheck, that's fine and dandy. But when they stop doing that, when the shop closes down, when they,
Hmm.
cut numbers, right? When they let you off because they're not selling, right? That's when you're like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have been a dick, but you've doubled down too far, right? Like in a lot of
Yeah.
these people, they've doubled down so far, they've blown themselves out. It's not like they sat back and said nothing, because look, if you sit back and say nothing, you can say, oh, well, I was always, I didn't like it, but I had to, keep my head down and take my paycheck and, get the fuck out of there. I had a family, whatever it is, right? A lot of
Yeah.
legit, a lot of good people work at really bad corporations, right? Bud Light, I guarantee they still some good people working at Bud Light, and maybe the exception, not the rule, but they're just keeping their
Yeah.
head down and taking their paycheck, right? And watching that, commercial roll through.
Well, you get
Um,
it to some degree because anyone that's old enough knows like things come and go and trends pass and weird good times and bad times. There's if you've been alive at least 40 years in the
Right.
US,
You see the
30
swings.
years, you kind of see the ups and downs, and you start to notice like things maybe older folks told you will have new impact in your brain, or you'll see the clarity of what they were trying to say that you just couldn't comprehend yet. I think we've all
Right.
been through some of that.
I
And
think that's one of the things where like there's always those events you see, and as you get older, you see more of them where everyone's freaking the fuck out and thinking the world is going to end,
mhm,
and then the world doesn't end, and then you're like, oh, it's still going on, but now we
yeah,
have to live in this post whatever world, and you see the old people who are like, yeah, I told you this was going to happen. Like this is exactly what's going to happen. I've seen this
yeah,
shit before. Like whether it's an economic dip, right? You know, like there's a recession, right? But then you come out and there's a
mhm,
boom, right? And you see that when you're older, you're like, oh, okay, I get it, right? Right now we're in this swing where this is the way this industry is going, but there
yeah,
is going to be a backswing. And I think we're still waiting for it. I want to say, I want to be positive and say that you guys are part of the backswing, right? And when people see the failures, right? We haven't seen, there needs to be more of a collapse. Like the bottom has to fall a little bit more,
yeah,
but it's going to
yeah.
be part of the backswing. And that's where I think that there's going to be a lot of people rushing to get on the train, and you guys have been there kind of ingrained in it, and I think you guys will benefit from that when it does swing
There's
back.
a
I do
lot of
believe
money
it will.
yeah. There's money propping up a lot of things, and I think we'll have to. It's going to take some degree of seeing the people that do that being disinterested or tired of sinking that money into it. Like the fact that DC and Marvel are alive in any capacity whatsoever
For
is a
comics,
fucking miracle. Yeah,
right? For comics, we're
yeah.
not talking about Marvel movies, right? Because we will get it. I mean, obviously, you have Disney money there, and you know that I think that superhero prop up is going to be a while, at least in the movie sector, right?
Well,
I think they're going to
they
try to
don't
milk it
even get
another
they
10
fuck
years.
that up, dude. When I had the shop, you know how many times like little boys or dads or moms would bring their kids in, and we would have a kid wanting Steve Rogers because he just saw the Captain America movie and was enthralled by it. And the new, all I had to offer him was back issues because all the new issues was like some generic, not Captain America person in place of Captain America, whether it be some guy or some girl or some this, or they even turned him into a Nazi for a while. I
Mhm.
mean, I know it was Hydra, but Hydra's basically just Nazis for comic books.
Well,
They're trying to
that
get him
was
piece of
actually kind of funny. The Hail
It
Hydra
was.
Captain America.
It
That
it
was
is
actually a good
funny. It's
meme. It
not.
was a good meme. It's a good meme.
It's it's bad for sales, but it's good for my laughter.
Yes.
You know, it's ironically retarded. But it's tough when you have you have comic books being laid out for shops on a golden platter in terms of what Hollywood did for them, and the comic book industry not jump on any part of that, and the Hollywood people not forcing them to. That's what's so sad is that's how little value Disney has for the comic books. They didn't even bother saying, let's try to correlate these movies and these books a little. Let's try to cross pollinate some. Zero effort
But they don't
whatsoever.
care.
Yeah. They
This is
don't.
why I think they're demented, which is why that Bud Light, like when I said this demonstrates smarter marketing, they don't think like holistically about brand. They don't think about products. They don't think, and Disney doesn't either, right? They used to be like merchandise and
Yeah.
you know games and everything else. It's like creating intellectual properties that have zero value outside the box office, and even the box office has dropped
Yeah.
dramatically. But you're not going to sell a single piece of merch, right? Okay, I can't say a single, right? You're not going to sell a significant amount of merch for any of these intellectual properties, right? Maybe one Rose Tico sold, right? But that
The
was like the
hardcores
only,
bought the Rose Tico
yeah,
just because they couldn't help it.
the
Yeah.
hardcore. And I've met a couple of these demented like Raylo stands and stuff like that that like went
Good
out there
Lord.
and bought these things, but they're in an extreme minority.
Yeah.
And they're deranged, right? There's like a very small deranged minority, but other than those folks, which by the way, a lot of those folks are dead broke and do not have the amount of money to put in that collectors would
We've got to get
for a
back to
moment and then
bullying.
came out. Yeah.
Gotta bully
Yeah.
these people. They didn't exist before because they were ashamed just enough to keep it to themselves.
Yep.
that's
Yep.
that's
Yep.
90% of what the problem is we need to start shaming people more,
Bring back
you know.
shame.
Yeah. Hey, I
But
as males, we have to be shamed over things whether we like it or not. The rest
we
of the world
get
can
it.
deal with it too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think look, shame works. Look, I'm in Asia. Listen, I ain't got no problem with shame. And like it's effective. You see, it's like, oh, this is super effective at compliance. Oh yes,
You're
this will
tall and
this will
thin, but they probably think
yeah.
you're fat just because
No, I am
you're
fat. No,
bigger
I'm
than
I'm
them.
fat here.
Yeah.
If you said like look like you might say I'm fat. Of course, I'm a foreigner, right? So I'm a foreigner standard, right? So they
Yeah.
might be generous and be like, well, compared to other dirty foreigners, you are less fat, dirty foreigner, but you're still fat. If I was a Korean,
Well, that's the thing. You'll never be a Korean, but as long as you're
no,
okay with that,
no.
it'll work. Yeah.
That's the key. That right there is the key,
Mhm.
Joe. And the thing is, that's the difference between woke people and the base people. Shout out to my boy Legal Vices, who's been here forever. The base people who survive and stick around, especially abroad, are people who realize I am not going to be one of these people. Right? It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. I'm not going to be accepted as this. That's okay. I'm just looking for my life to be better and things that I want in my life to be better. Right?
Yeah.
Not to be integrated. I think the wokies want to integrate. They want to be accepted. They have this belief that they can become part of the culture if they know enough about it. Oh, if I learn enough about Mexico, I'll be Mexican. If I learn enough about Japan, I'll be Korean. If I listen to enough BTS, I'll be Korean. Sorry. No matter how cute you put your name, you come up with a
Mhm.
Korean translation of your name, you put it in Hangul. Sorry, you're still a foreigner. Like period.
I
End
want
of
the
story.
Japanese more than anyone else to love Death. I'm actively working on getting uh proper translation that makes sense to a Japanese person. It's not
Mhm.
just literal, like it's written in a way that's attractive to them. So it involves
Well, if you need a
a little
translator,
read.
I do know a guy. I actually interviewed a really good translator for my other channel, Go East Gentleman, which is my Asia relocation, moving, checking out Asia channel. And he does translation and really based dude, really cool. But yeah, no, I can give you a recommendation there. But yeah, you do need to get it right
Sure. Yeah,
because
good. Anyone you can send me their contact and
the
I'll get a hold of them.
the problem is that most of these translators, and this is a big problem in anime. I actually created a video. It hasn't launched on that channel, but the problem is the translators, the people who are going Japanese to English, they're woke as shit. And
Yep.
they're the ones who are making characters which are not bisexual or trans. They're making them into trans. They would always use that as a shtick in anime and comics, right? Like the guy has to dress up, put a dress on in order to like infiltrate a ladies' team brunch, or something like
Yeah.
that, right? So he's like trying to spy. That doesn't make him trans. That's just a comic shtick, right? But
They
they're
don't
like, oh,
understand
he's
the
trans
difference
now,
between humor themes
right?
and a fetish. It's like, no, these are
Right.
just themes to make you giggle for a minute or put a character in an awkward situation he wouldn't be in otherwise. Like it's a constant problem, especially with voice actors, because here's the catch. They're taking advantage of the Japanese because they know that the Japanese don't know how far off base they are making their
Yes,
product. And they also know the Japanese don't even care enough in
they
certain
don't
cases.
care. They don't care
Yeah.
because they really are targeting for the domestic market.
Yes.
So they're
Yeah.
like, we're like, yo, we really don't give a fuck, right? We're like anime is for us. We're making anime for us. And by the way, I was just in Japan like 3-4 weeks ago. There's so much that never gets translated, that they don't even bother
Yeah.
translating it because number one, the story is way too base. Number two, or it might be too dirty, right? It might be like just to this hentai content pretty much.
Yeah.
So they can't, they don't want to translate too much of that. But, it's never going to see the light of day because the translators just don't want to even bother trying to make it lefty. But for all the big properties, all the popular ones, they're going to try to make it as woke as possible. And that's just something you have to accept. And in your choices, hey, find people that have good, faithful translations, right? Search those out, learn Japanese, or, find good English language media.
Well, they have the blessing that the hardcore fans, which honestly is the bulk of the base, the fakies aren't the bulk. Um,
Mhm.
they're really into it. They're really defensive of it. Thank God. Gatekeep anime and manga like you've never gatekept it before.
Yes.
And stay on it because you guys are one of the few that have stayed on it enough that you've kept it at a minimum without completely infecting everything to a point where like you're getting the other people just getting into it to just go watch a proper um dub, or not a proper dub, but a captioned version if need be, that maybe a fan did that speaks native Japanese and knows how to properly give, like, I
Hmm.
don't, like, if I want to
And
see what's
this
going
is
on with
actually
manga,
this is
I'll even do
actually
that.
interesting too, though. I didn't know about this as well, Joe. Is that now there's AI translating? So this
Ooh.
will change the game. Like,
Yeah, that will change it.
yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's one of those things. It's like you're gonna cut out the middleman, and you're gonna be like, "Hey, fuck you!" Like I'm getting a pretty good translation. Maybe it'll be weird sometimes, right? Because that's the whole thing. There's like some
Yeah.
cultural context, right? Like with very literal, but if it gets it pretty close and it's no programming, you know,
Well, some people
it,
don't realize too, like when languages cross over, there's things with English and things with other languages that when we try to interpret each other, it can come off sounding like caveman language.
yes, yeah,
Words don't exist, or descriptors don't exist, or adjectives, or all kinds of different reasons. So, like, you do need trustworthy people to fill that gap. And if you don't have them, and the AI at least gets it 90% there, and you just got to have a guy kind of skim through it, make sure it's okay.
yeah.
I mean, you're set. It completely defeats that
The
problem.
the the classic "all your base are belong to us." That was so fucking great. I love that one. Yeah, no, it's gonna get there for AI. Here's the thing, guys. People say, "Oh, it's trash, it's trash." The fact that it's close, like, means give it 5 years, and you know,
Yeah.
just give
It's
it
like
time.
3D printers, dude. They went from these things that zipped back and forth and built a layer up and constantly had problems if it wasn't calibrated perfectly. You had to damn near be a technician to operate one in a reliable way without a bunch of help.
Yeah,
To now it has a pool of liquefied resin, and it can shoot lasers through it, cut a design as it's lifting it out of the resin, and it solidifies.
mm,
Like, there's the lengths that 3D print has went in just like the last like 5 to 6 years is wild. So yeah, you can
yeah.
apply that amongst many other things where, I mean, look at flat screen TVs, dude. They cost nothing.
Oh yeah,
I can go to
it's.
Walmart right now at $500 and put a TV in every room in my
I
house. A big
remember when
ass
they were
TV.
like, completely unaffordable. It was like, I will never be able to afford that. This is ridiculous. It's like a car
Yeah.
payment, right?
Yep.
Now it's like, oh yeah, TV. This is a joke, right? Here's a TV. You get a TV, and you get
Yeah.
a TV, and you get a TV.
Exactly. We're Oprah with TVs up in here,
Yeah,
just giving them
like it
away to the
doesn't
world.
fucking matter.
A kid
All right,
lives in a hut in Africa. Give him a fucking TV. Let
fucking
that
TV.
boy watch some TV.
But it's funny though, because it's like a lot of places. And this is a real interesting thing when you travel and you see, what quote unquote third world countries, right? They'll
Yeah.
have a mobile phone and a TV, but they
Mhm.
won't have like clean drinking water. It'll be like, all right,
It costs a
like I
lot
just.
more to clean the water than to be entertained.
That's right. Let me get to some of these chats. Thank you, Leprechaun Gold, for the $50 super sticker. Appreciate you. Shanny, 1034 said, "Oh, hey, didn't know you were live yet, Joe. Sorry, I'm late to the party." And then Shanny, thank you for becoming a member. Now you have
God
access
bless
to the
Shanny.
emojis, everything else. Appreciate you in the chat. And guys, I'm going to be doing more members exclusive polls, more member exclusive content. So whether you become a member of the RPG Replay Gang or BLM, the most based membership, that'll really get you more content. I'm going to be doing a lot more for that in terms of polls, exclusive polls, and videos and everything else like that streams. So guys, prepare for that. And also Max Mura, my favorite Japanese man, said April 14th, Black Day in Korea. So sad, don't get mad. So today is the day in Korea, Joe, where if you don't get something on Valentine's Day or on White Day is like each of the genders has a day. So like Valentine's Day is for, I believe, I'm going to cross this. I think Valentine's Day is for men to receive stuff. And then if they
Okay.
like the woman back, they give her something on White Day. So if you get totally blanked on both days, it's Black Day and you go eat these like black noodles. So it's like that's like,
I thought you were gonna say go
forever
out to the
alone.
woods and lynch yourself. Thank God that's not the case. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
you advertise yourself as forever alone, so it's great.
Yeah.
Max Murek says, Andrew, can I self-identify as Korean? Caucasian man.
Caucasian.
Thank you, Max.
Uh,
I look forward to hanging out in Tokyo again. You crazy
oh man.
fucker. But speaking of crazy fucks in Tokyo, well, I want to know here. Like, I was scanning, what's going on in comics and like what the fuck was going on. What the hell was going on? I saw this status and I saw like Umbrella Guy and you talking about it. Why were they okay? Berserk is one of my favorite mangas and animes ever. I was actually talking with Rini about it last week. what the fuck was going on with people in Berserk? I didn't watch this. Were they trying to cancel Berserk? Did people suddenly discover a property that's been out for like 20 fucking years? I mean, what was going on there?
It's kind of like one of those things where, like, like if life gets too calm and normal, like some crazy person has to try to go stir the pot on something because they're bored and they don't have real problems in life. So some degenerate liberal people on Twitter decided they were going to go against Berserk, say anyone that reads it's a terrible person with no explanation why, and they do the so you should just know why type thing, and it's like,
Right.
no, for one thing, Berserk's been around for 30 plus years.
Yep.
In my opinion, it's the greatest comic manga whatever that's ever been created. Nothing will top it. Nothing's been better than it.
That
It
genre
is,
that it's in, that what it does, it is going to be the best, right? Like
yeah,
what it is the best. I think, you can argue, look, if you don't like that genre, okay, right? Because that's the thing with anime and manga, right? If you're somebody like that dark genre is like not your thing, right? Although I would say you probably have to acknowledge, even if the dark genre is your thing, the art is fantastic and amazing on a fundamental level, and the story is amazing.
well, it's one of those things where, like, if you like high quality stuff in life, if you're not a person that's always settling for whatever's the most accessible, but you actually seek out high quality and you seek out intense and well done stuff, it's one of those things. I think if everyone read it, nearly everyone would like it. The only problem with Berserk for some people is the themes are deep. They are the character does have traumatic things happen to them as a child and an
Yes,
adult.
some
And
grape, which by the
yeah,
way is unfortunately being a more real topic nowadays, especially for men. One of the chronically under talked about things is that men are the victims of incredible amounts of sexual violence that they don't talk about, right? That you
especially
don't
when they're
hear.
kids, it may not
Mhm.
be a massive problem as adults outside of the prison system or things like that. But yeah, when they're kids, terrible things happen. And Berserk presents it to you in a manner that is not only like realistic, and it's to a point where you wonder if something happened to Kenta because
Mhm.
he seems to know the topic extremely well. So he either researched it, had some insight into it, whether it was a family member or something, where you're getting those themes, you're getting difficult themes presented to you in a way that is not unrealistic, despite it being in a fantasy world.
Mhm.
And if the book doesn't affect you in some way, I don't know. You're just clearly the most bland milk toast person that
Vanilla
ever exists.
motherfucker out
Yeah,
there. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Like you
You
just
don't have an original thought in your entire brain, not even for a second.
right.
You grew up just on whatever someone told you or pointed you towards. It's an amazing piece of art. It'll go down as the greatest comic, the greatest manga ever made, and it's because it had that level of impact. It's had that impact on everyone that's came across it, and it finally reached our shores. And for anyone to pretend like they're above it or they're better than it, it's like you didn't read it. Because
Yeah.
if you did, you would know that none of this is the bad things are not presented as good. The bad guys are not presented as good. Up's not down, left's not right.
Yeah,
It's
there are
there's
no
grayscale
true
characters, but it's pretty black and white
bad
book.
guys. Yeah, I mean, like there I guess there's true evil, right?
Yeah,
And even true, like the good characters, they're kind of flawed, right? They're not
yeah,
perfect characters, right? So even like, I mean, obviously Guts is a very flawed character, right?
yeah.
All the characters, they make moral decisions, and they kind of, if only sometimes when they turn the other way or turn the blind eye or keep going on the horse, they don't
Hmm.
stop, right? They're walking by something that is really bad that's happening, and they just
Yeah,
look the other way, right? So but it's so realistic, and it's such, when you get into humans reacting to situations, and like when you're put into that situation, how do you react coming out of that? How do you react being that person in that situation? Insane. Also, I just love that Costco was taken out by her period. That was like hilarious. It was like, this is the first like thing. It's like that's like, put this in, like, okay, here's the problem with women in combat. You're now incapacitated. I'm like, well, this is realistic.
it
It's like,
is. It is
you know,
because we've all anyone that's had a girlfriend or a wife or probably even your mom, if you're able to pick up on it, would know that, like, it does put them down, and it is serious, and it does hurt them dramatically, and they can, take a few over the counter meds and different things to kind of get through it. But I mean, it's going to be rough on them for a little bit, and they're really in no condition to be trying to fight people. Just like Casca was in no position to work at her full level. It's no different than having the flu and thinking you can work at your highest level. It's not. It's just not realistic.
Right.
So,
Yeah. The fact that she could pick up a sword was impressive, much less like fight back against like seasoned veteran male warriors that are like fucking jacked. Like, obviously,
be a little sympathetic to women in that case, because it's obviously not something they can help or they would want outside of their just, if they're really weird about not wanting to have kids. That's the only thing I can think of to make them be like, curse this period, never have it. As long as they're having it, they feel kind of good about themselves as a woman, whether it's a pleasant experience or not,
Speaking of feeling good about myself, Shani, thank you so much, Shani, 1034, gifting 5 Legal Mindset memberships and then 20 Legal Mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Really helps out the channel and really helps out everybody here. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Really, thank you. Yeah, no, it's like I just like seeing stories that like they tell the real story. They don't sugarcoat it. They don't make it shiny. That's once again the kind of, I don't want to say Marvel, but maybe you're gonna get what I'm saying. Like the clean superheroes. Like I mean, I want to see somebody like struggling to take a shit. And I'm not saying I want the whole thing to be about shitting, but I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean. I want them to have like some real problems. I want to I want to see like Superman get indigestion. Like Batman ate some bad Chinese and like he's vomiting. I want to see that, sometimes in a character, just the realness, right? And I think Berserk has a lot of that realness and that real impact. And you feel it, right? You feel like you're on this journey, despite there being supernatural things in the story.
Exactly.
So people trying to cancel it can get the fuck out.
For real. And I mean, I know it's the type of book it is. It's definitely not for kids. You don't hand that to someone that doesn't have some level of life experience, because it's just not a good idea. But it's an amazing story. It truly is. And it's one of those things where when I first read Berserk and was caught up on it to that point, like, I sat there and couldn't believe I didn't know about it. I was happy I didn't yet, because it gave me this cool thing to experience at a point in my life where I was sick of everything, and I was just bored with everything around me. So, I mean, I just love it. I can't say enough great things about Berserk. It's insane how good it is.
Yeah, and I realized that everyone's going to run out there and clip me saying, I want to see Superman, taking a shit or whatever else. That's why I do these things for you guys. That's why we do these things live.
Yeah. He wants Superman to struggle with things. Superman shits are perfect. Don't you know that? He doesn't have any issues with that.
It's just golden and glossy. It's like, no.
Well, here's how you could do it. In the old days, I don't know if it's still like this, Superman's strength levels were based off of the amount of sunlight he was receiving.
Oh, so he's really deprived, right? He's really like not at sun.
He takes a trip to Massillon, Ohio, up north near Cleveland, where the steel mills are all dead and the skies are gray 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a year round. And he's in the negative. He ain't got no strength, so his dumps are just an absolute nightmare for him. And Andrew finally gets the book he's been craving so bad from DC. DC's going to hear this and be like, you know what? I think he's onto something.
You know what? These guys have a great idea. Let's put this into action, because listen, nothing else is working, so fuck it, YOLO.
These right wingers said they would buy our books if we had superhero shit, and it didn't work at all. We're bad at humor. It's like, yeah, you are bad at understanding humor.
God, people say U.S. Air Force just allowed pregnant women to fly combat missions. That reminds me of this meme I just saw, which is great. Testicular injuries among female athletes all the way up to 2020 skyrocket.
My balls slap the water funny. I need time off, coach.
Hilarious.
Coach, my jock came loose and I got whippersnap between my legs running. I can't run this week, coach. My balls hurt.
I wanted to get your opinion on some of this, because some like cultural issues, because obviously, at the heart of the Comicsgate was cultural issues, right? Where it was really this divide over, where we're going and what that should be reflected in comics. So like, obviously, you know, we see these things kind of playing out in the mainstream. And I want to get your take because I haven't reacted to this either. Have you seen the Elon Musk and BBC journalist interview?
I saw the clip that's been floating around. I haven't watched the whole thing.
Because here's the thing, and I just want to watch the clip real quick. Like it's a 2-minute clip. Because I want you to reflect on it too and help me reflect on it because I think that look in comics and in you know a lot of other things we get accused of being racist, sexist, you know, et cetera, right? And I think that a lot of times those things are baseless. Like if you go, okay, tell me what about my comic is racist. Tell me what exactly is sexist. And even if they can come up with an example, usually it's a ridiculous example. Like D&D, you know, orcs are black people, which is incredibly ridiculous and also racist to just even
the
suggest.
Mental gymnastics and assumptions build way too quick.
Half races, you know, are problematic because of half children, and we don't want to represent that or whatever. You know, that is insane. So I just want to see what you think about this one, and guys in the chat, what you think about that. Let me know what you want to think. You think about this clip in the chat. Oh yeah, let me get this one here from Max Mir. Says, "Be careful what you wish for. Want something in Japan? Want shit in Japan? We got you. Yes, I know you're into that. You kinky Japanese
content you don't like or hateful. What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content.
He is saying something.
Yes, he is. He is saying that.
Yeah.
And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
you
don't.
can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore because I just don't particularly like it.
But you
said a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
You
said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Bullshit. You know he's lying.
He's not sure he's got a reasonable standard to judge anything on.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen that you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about. Really? Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I claimed,
you just lied.
What I claimed was there are many organizations that
Andrew, this guy had the nuts to say, really?
Whether it has a
give me one example.
I mean, right, and
literally
if you look at something
one.
Like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know this hateful content?
Because the retard that brought it up. I think we should move past this now.
Yeah. So like, it's like he immediately tries to move past it, but like I've never seen like just someone getting blown out and just not having an answer. Like, and how can you? This is how sugar-coated they are. In a real debate or interview or whatever else, if you're trying to gotcha somebody, you got to be prepared for the response. To be so unprepared for that simple thing is like just shows the laziness and incompetence of modern journalism. It's staggering. And by the way, that's the mindset too. It's, oh, well, this other person said you were mean. I don't know what basis they said that, but they say you're mean. So that means you must be mean, right? It's in I think, you know, relating it back, right? This is what they were relying on when they were trying to cancel everybody part of Comicsgate. Oh, this person said you were mean, right? These people say you're being mean. Therefore, you guys must be racist, sexist, misogynist. You know, you must be horrible, right? Because somebody else said this. This is the mind virus that blows my mind here. The guy cannot give one example of an actual statement, an actual bad thing that was done.
It's one of those things where you can tell they all repeat what someone else told them to say or the script is or things like that. None of that really shocks or surprises us at this point. I think we're like a little past being surprised about such things, but
Yep.
it's shocking when they insult other people's intelligence on such a level to think we don't know that now. That's how out of touch. Like that's really why the MSN's so out of touch and their bubble's so out of touch. It's because they think they're like silly gay tricks still fool people, and they don't. They haven't for quite a while, and a large swath because they are not around normies. They don't realize that most normies ignore them and move on. Like
Yeah.
I always tell people when they have some complaint and they say, "Well, 1 million people said this or 2 million people think that." I'm like, there's 385 ish, 400 million ish of us in America, depending on your
Yeah.
immigrant count coming across the border.
Right.
So,
If you even get
and
an accurate count on that, right?
yeah,
Which is it's a guesstimation, right? So yeah, if you say
but they're
1 million
here and
people,
they
I'll
don't
believe
care
you.
about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't even muster up less than 1% of the entire population to believe you. You can't muster up more than 1% of the population to watch your TV shows, to acknowledge you. All the notice happens is when we joke about you on internet world, and that's it. No one. The cat watches Rachel Maddow at night. That's who's watching her. It's 500,000 kitty cats or 350,000 kitty cats. It's not real life human beings. You know what I mean? Like
And that's the only pussy you're gonna get if you're watching Rachel Rachel
yeah, that poor
Uh,
cat. That's
yeah.
kitty cat abuse. I
Yeah,
mean, we all
it
know
is.
I'm a little animal hater at this point, so I say let the cat watch it. But you know,
Oh man. Let's see. Deha said here, in Asia, works with even with translations, the cultural context is lost. Wokesters fail to understand this and arrogantly push their viewpoints. Yeah. Even with it, they'll lose the baseness because oftentimes there's like this really grounded and really it's based in their history, right? And like the history, I mean, honestly, like learning history, particularly, if you learn like Japanese history, Korean history, anywhere Southeast Asia, they got some hardcore shit that went down that like you don't learn about till you come over here. You're like, wait, what did you do? Like,
yeah.
Someone like smuggled this grenade in to like suicide bomb to like take out like one particular official who like had this like blood feud, that went back like a generation. Like you just find stuff and you're like, holy shit, this is fucking insane.
Other countries in some cases teach more about American history than they do their own. And that's like something people have to even take in. Like they're just getting the cliff notes on us, and in a lot of ways we barely get cliff notes on them. There's so much you will never know. And that's even state to state, county to county. There's things you'll just never know till you're in it.
Even once you learn it, like the things they're teaching you are wrong. They're like, oh yeah, these people feel this way. Then you go there and you're like, that's not how they feel at all.
Yeah.
Right. Like you'll ask the people and you're like, oh, what do you think about, let's say, Africans, and like what do Africans think about this statement, that like there's shithole countries, right? And you go to them and you're like, oh, that's horrible. In America, you go to a college student and you say, oh, well, how do you feel about the statement that there's shithole countries? Oh, that's horrible. We should never say that. That's so disrespectful. You go to, Djibouti, or you go to like Swaziland, or you go to South Africa even, and you're like, are there shithole countries? And they're like, yes, you're welcome right now. Right. We're living in one right now. Like that's a minute. It's like, it's just this denial of reality. And also I think these people really haven't gotten out and gotten out of the little fucking safe space, a little bubble, whether it's the Twitter bubble, which is I think what the BBC guy was in, or if you're a college student in the college bubble, right? Where you're just this protected little bubble.
Well, even some like ultra liberal college students I've met over the years, the ones that travel abroad are the most well adjusted. Even if I don't agree with some of their views, they at least have a more realistic approach to things than your average liberal that's never left the state or the city or the town they live in. That thinks America's awful and the worst place in the world and has no clue. Like, dude, you can move to a small town in America and make it big time, make it great, have a very comfortable lifestyle, and compared to people in Haiti that can work their whole life and not even get a quarter of what you've got from working at McDonald's. Like, how ungrateful. But
You
they
have
just
no
don't know.
idea.
You don't know
have
what you don't know.
no clue. You have zero clue.
There
It's
are a few
insane.
buddies in Tokyo that are American birthed and lived over here most of their life, but they've been in Tokyo 8 or 10 years now, married into families and stuff like that. One of
Mhm.
them's a Marine, but they I'll get basically the same story, but with slight variations on how things are, according to them. And like one guy will say like, yeah, man, it's just the racism kind of sucks. But another guy's interpretation is they're not comfortable with a foreigner, no matter who it is. And
Yeah,
that's a natural reaction. And I think it is too. If someone comes in my town I don't know,
it's
I
an
don't
in-group.
like you till I get to know you. Then
Mhm,
maybe I'll like you. But until then, I don't. And it's not
mhm.
personal. It's nothing against you. It's just I don't know you yet, dude. And
And
that's a
it's
normal instinct reaction for
it's an
everybody.
evolutionary response. It's a
Yeah.
human thing. We need to say like these are human things, and these kept us safe over the years. Guess what happened
Yeah.
when we were in tribes? When it was like we're holding spears, and you don't look like I look like. It's like yes, that was dangerous, right? Because you now have an outsider who's an X factor. But once you learn who that person is, once you know them, you know their character, you know their personality, you're like, oh yeah, you're cool, right? You're fine, right? You're good, right? And once you get to that point where they see, oh yeah, you're good, the treatment definitely does change. But it's a reaction. And by the way, the thing is that people don't get, especially about places like Japan or Korea, it's against each other too, right? So it's like if you're non-Japanese, it doesn't matter whether you're Chinese or Korean, right? Or very close, like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're Asian, right? Versus European, you're still a foreigner. You're a gaijin if you're
You're still
anywhere.
never going to be Japanese.
Exactly. Does not matter
Yeah.
if you are, does not matter if you are very closely related, right? In terms of geography,
Yeah.
right? Or even, dare you say genealogy, but that gets
Yeah.
people triggered. Speaking of triggered Japanese, Max Mira says, Max is on Blacklist 2. True story, season 3, episode 6 also. Max, just because all Asian men look the same doesn't mean you can just ascribe yourself to every single Japanese character in every single TV show, Max. So
You know what
calm
broke
down.
me of that stereotype, Andrew,
Yeah,
is because
what?
I do have an affinity for lots of Japanese things, even if
Right.
there's things I don't. But I've always been a fan of pro wrestling ever since I was a kid. If
Oh,
you're
yeah?
raised in the 80s, it was kind of hard not to be.
Yeah.
But I had discovered bits and pieces of Japanese wrestling in the 90s, but it was usually old or things that happened years ago, and it was on a VHS tape in a booth for another wrestling show, like things like that, obscurities. You didn't see a lot of it. And then in the around like 2012, it got real accessible on the internet, and I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm going to see what's going on in Japan
Yeah.
because it's it's different, it's fun. And as soon as I started watching Japanese wrestling, I'd say after like 6 months of watching it constantly, because it's athletic and it's interesting and fun. I started to see the difference in all the Japanese people. I can look at a crowd of them now, none of them look the same to me anymore. There's exceptions, but I see different people now, and I it's weird how you can start to put together attributes of different looking people that at one time just looked all the same to you. It's I don't know, it's just strange when you have these little realizations and moments of clarity in life where it's like, yeah, maybe they all got the same hair color and things like that, but there are a lot of defining attributes to them physically that you don't notice till you really start seeing a lot of them being presented to you.
Well, a lot of
And
in anime and manga, when they do the eyes, right? That's because that's one of the things they think is distinguishing. So they can like look at the different types of eyes and like the cat eye or like the big eye,
yeah,
the round eye. Like they see that and they see that distinction, whereas you may not even notice that at all. Right.
mhm,
But it's like you get used to it. And of course, you're over here for longer. Right now, I can distinguish, and I can also, distinguish, generally looking at someone from their style, especially.
mhm.
Are they Japanese, Chinese, or Korean? I can like pretty much tell like right away. Just be like, oh, that person is Chinese.
Even
Or
how
that
they
person's
talk,
Korean.
you can pick a person that's
Talk is
from
talk is
Thailand
easy.
apart from a Japanese person, because one sounds like a Chinese hillbilly and the other one sounds like a Japanese man. Like
Yeah.
there's a clear difference. Like every time one time I was looking for a New Japan wrestling matches, and all I could find was like these bootleg versions where the commentary was done by guys from Thailand that were
Yeah.
overdubbing the commentary for their
Yeah.
audience, and it was like "Poing Chow Ta," like it was literally
Yeah.
like a banjo. It was like a hill person in America
it's
put
it's a
in
lot.
Thailand,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you have Japanese guys sound totally different when they do their commentary, and you start to pick these even the regional places where, like you said, they're similar, maybe in their origins are similar, but they're different. You know,
Yep.
each group of islanders is a little different from the other.
Their
It's like
personality is different too. The
Yeah.
way they react, the way they deal with other people, the way they interact with different relationships, hierarchy, individualism. Like even these things, like okay, we say, oh, they're all communalist, right? But there's a strata within that. Like some are more, some are less, right? If you're in the
Yeah.
CCP, you're much more communalist than over here on this side of the border, right? When you aren't aiming missiles up north of the border, right? That you're down south. The behavior definitely changes. Let me think also here. Shani again, 20, 20, and then another 20, so 40 so far. Thank you so much for really growing BLM. Thank you so much, Shani, for growing the Base Eagle mindset with those 40 now.
Shani's one of my super fans.
I really
and she's an
appreciate that.
absolute saint when it comes to other people's channels. Like not only does she support, she goes overboard with the support, and she really is a good girl.
Thank you for that. Seriously, it really helps out, and honestly, it helps out these channels. All these channels grow when we're being kept down in the algorithm. Right now, normally I could have 400, 600, 700. We're rocking 200 here, but guess what? It does not matter. We're getting out the message, and look, it's going to spread. People will come later. The Reply Gang, by the way, Reply Gang, if you're watching this on the replay, leave a comment below that you're Reply Gang. You just found this later. It happens. I've got to manually review every video. I think it may be because I put the word death in there.
Probably. I can't even put in super chats with the title of my book. Like when I try to super chat people and throw the title in, I have to finagle those super
chats. DDD?
Like
you just call it DDD?
I have to put it in like 15 different times before a chat will clear. I've just given up lately. Like I don't even bother. I'm like, if I have to try more than 2 or 3 times, I've left the words out, like check out or back or take a look or anything that could remotely imply deviating from YouTube. Like I've been trying to find ways like, hey, I'm sitting here working on blah, 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 listening to my favorite YouTuber. They rule. I try to find a way to slip it in, and it's still, they've caught on, man. I can't put death anywhere without a robot just stamping me out.
Stamping you as negative. Yeah, stamping you as a bad thing because they just got that word. That word is verboten.
It's the Decepticons. I'm telling you, they're ruining everything.
It's very true. It's very true. They are ruining everything. So let me get through all the shilling here. So guys, obviously you can check out all these links are in the description. So check out Swarm. That's your comic over here.
That's the next one coming up. We got the sign up list right now for it for notifications when it hits. That's from my business partner, Shane Mess. It's kind of his take on like old school superheroes,
Nice. And then Death is also in the description. We've been talking a lot about that. Obviously, Berserk inspiration there. You can check out Joe on Twitter as well. Joe Ball on Twitter.
Yep.
His link is in the description as well. And on my end, let me get my shilling out here, guys. I have a lot new information coming out from Go East Gentlemen. Check out this my new channel. Thank you. We are almost at 2K subs. I will be doing a live stream in AMA. I'm debating whether or not I do that before or after Thailand. But I'll be doing another one soon. I'm going to be doing kind of bi-weekly-ish AMAs for this channel. The last one went really well. So thank you for that, and appreciate everybody who signed up for a consult on goeastgentleman.com. So I had some consults there, which was really helpful. And I'm glad I can help people who want to move over here to Asia or just want to come and visit and help them kind of figure that out, even if you're just coming and staying for maybe a couple weeks or a month or whatever. I always like that. And also in my manga project, my comic project, Adjudicator's Academy, the LawTube story in manga form, we have chapter 3 is now complete. So I posted a panel. This is not the final panel, but this is, I don't think I'd shown any panels showing the Dragrid character, aka the Drex plus Hagrid. But this is a panel up there showing a fully completed panel. Check this out. It's under updates, so you can read through this. This is in the chapter following the chapter called Degenerate Alley. This one is Pay Pig Bank.
How have I not heard about
this? This is great. I don't know how you haven't had Adjudicator's Academy. It's a fantastic project.
I'll look it up tonight, man. I apologize.
I'll send it to you right now. Yeah. It's going in the private chat. But this is pretty much your LawTube in parody anime format. So it's really great. I've loved working on this project. We're at 96 supporters, 97 supporters. Just hit another one here. I'm pushing for 100. So guys, if you haven't supported it, go over here and support it. If we get to the stretch goal, then I will get that out ASAP. But we're going to have the first issues. We're scheduled to hit for May. I've got most of all the add-ons, most of all the perks are all done. I got some of the swimsuit art back. Mwah, looking good. A lot of good waifu art. So you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised. And it's staying digital so that we can deliver. I'm in Korea. I'm not trying to deal with fulfillment in the United States. So we're keeping it all digital, keeping it light for you guys. But yeah, check it out. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited about this project. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it. Joe, do you have anything else you want to say? Any parting words for everybody here on the chat?
Off the top of my head, nothing real major, just stuff we've already said here. Check out my book if you enjoy Bible lore.
You're getting love here from Shani, who just sent another 20. He says, death. Give it a look. It's amazing. Joe is the GOAT. So, hey, I mean,
I won't argue with her. She's probably right. Objectively, she's correct. It's a 300+ page book. It's a huge book. We even have a manga format for people that want it. Like, it'll still read like an American comic. I don't have the time to like actually go in and make that level of adjustment so it reads like a manga, but it'll be 5 by 7.5. It'll still be in the typical range you would see to Barnes and Noble, so it'll fit right on your shelf with all your other stuff. The interiors will be black and white, grayscaled, so it will be grayscaled like a manga. But other than that, it's that's like the value option if you're looking for something that's not $30 or $40 or like the original art that's like $1,000. That's your way to get the book at a reasonable rate, and even the shipping across the board, I just did it at set prices. So even if it does cost a little more to ship to some places overseas, it kind of balances out with things. And I've done my best to be able to make it accessible for everybody in some way.
Well, hopefully we get to the point where we can buy Joe the triple D titties he was always waiting for. I did circle back to the beginning of this conversation. So you can really capture those e-thoughts, the e-thought dollars. We could really get that. No, but seriously though, it's a great project, and the fact that you've gotten so much backing behind it, I think it's a testament to that. Like fighting uphill to get almost 1,100 backers. That's fantastic. I mean, that's really amazing.
It's been a battle. Like I have to scrape and fight for every single backer I get, and I appreciate everyone being so supportive. We're trying to get to 100K before I close it out and have like my numbers in with what I got to print, what I got to get done. But it's a labor of love. It's an intense story. If you appreciate like war stories that are about families surviving in tough times, it's basically a story about tough times making strong people. If I narrowed it down to just one center theme, and that's kind of what the overall theme is it's the lengths you would go to for your children or for your wife or things like that. And but it's all placed in the setting of a science fiction war, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So you're getting all that. You're getting the good story, you're getting the family message, and you're getting the sci-fi. Guys, check that out. And Joe, I hope to maybe have you on back again, especially when I do I want to do like a comics panel and have a couple of you comics guys on to kind of have like
anytime.
The Hollywood squares, right? But I just definitely want to have you on for one-on-one, so we had a chance to talk. Stick around for a second. We'll talk after this. Guys, thank you so much. I will be back on Sunday night with Mexican Iron Man. I will also be premiering, I think after that, I'm going to premiere my big video on Reedy Creek. So it's going to have all the information. If you want to know about the Disney battle with DeSantis, it's going to be my ultimate video, kind of like my everything explained video that's going to debut after that. So that's going to be something that I'm going to push after that airs. So definitely check that out on Sunday night. We should be talking about Disney. We should be talking about, all these woke people trying to push Latinx and how much he likes mowing lawns for other folks. So, it'll be a great conversation with Mexican Iron Man. Good friend of mine, good friend of the channel. Been a while. Been waiting to have him on. So check that out Sunday. Catch you guys later.